Hi, welcome back. Thanks for joining me for my second video blog. So today I wanted to share with you a little bit about my personal story. Last time I talked about where I'm at and what I've been doing to lose the last 50 pounds that I've lost. But I wanted to share how I got to be 225 pounds. So settle in. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So being 100 or 125, I wish, being 225 pounds doesn't happen overnight. Not at all. It happens after night and day after day of eating huge portions, of eating until you're sick sometimes, eating things that look really innocuous but really have like 500 calories in them. Um, just eating all the time and eating for comfort. And the reason I ate for comfort was because, I think it has a lot to do with my dad. Growing up, my dad was sick a lot. He had probably about 7 different stomach surgeries by the time I was 10 or 11. He was on a feeding tube for a long time, so I remember shooting him with Diet Coke to kind of clear the line. Fun stuff like that. And so it was a different kind of way to grow up. And, I had a great childhood. I really did. I had parents that loved me and supported me and carted me off to so many different things and, activities and sports. And they really were amazing parents. But having a father who you're very close to be sick took its toll on me. My dad was a stay-at-home dad. My mom is a teacher, and she worked. And my dad was the stay-at-home dad. And so I would go to school, and my dad would be there in the morning. My dad would be there when I got back from school. And so he and I were very close. We got to talk a lot, and he was my biggest fan. And my mom and I are really close too, but in a different way, and more so now than we were then. And she was kind of the backbone keeping us afloat, really. So my dad was an amazing guy. He really was. He loved community. He not the TV show, of course, but the actual thing, our communities. He loved being a part of the community. He loved doing projects and bettering the community, and he loved being a part of our church and really thinking philosophically and testing my screen testing his faith and so many other cool things. He was a writer, and he was really cool. He's funny, corny but funny. But he was sick a lot, and he couldn't really play that long because he would get really tired. And I grew up a little bit faster than my peers because of that. In that way, it wasn't the worst thing in the world, and I guarantee you, obviously, that there are a million different stories out there that are worse than mine. But for me as a kid, it was terrifying to have to go to the ER all of a sudden because of something that happened with him, or wait through a surgery, or have scary tubes coming out of him, or not be able to touch him, and so I got used to the physical part. I got used to it. And then fast forward to high school, I was 16 and he was diagnosed with skin cancer. And I'm like, well, okay, skin cancer is not that bad. It's treatable. They can remove them. And they did. It was kind of weird because they took all the distinguishing marks I was so used to off of his face. But, that helped. It was fine. And then 2 years later, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer, which is a more prevalent and aggressive cancer for men. And so we went through hormone ablation, which is where they take out all your testosterone. So it's like they're going through menopause of some sort. And then they also did radiation. And that resulted in him having a hard time controlling his bathroom needs. Because radiation isn't so centralized and focused. It can kill all the cells wherever it's aimed. And unfortunately, the prostate's right next to the bladder. And, so being like 18 and having to get your dad adult diapers is different for a Walmart errand, let me tell you. So he died in 2008 in June, and he'd been doing pretty well, but then earlier that year he had just started to decline. He started mentally too, and that was the hardest part. And this whole 2 decades really of me overeating. By the time I was 16, I was a size 18, and by the time I was in college, I was a size 20, and by the time I was out of college, I was a size 24, and kind of maintained that for several years until last year. And yeah, so my mom and I took care of him for the last 3 or 4 months in our home. We really didn't want to take him to a nursing home, and we wanted to take care of him. And he died in our home in Syracuse, from Nebraska. And we worked with a team of hospice nurses who are just the most amazing people ever. Seriously, they're great. And it was tough because I remember being in Omaha at my work and wanting to call him and just check in. I did that a lot. And he wouldn't answer. And I knew he was home and my mom was at work and it was worrying me. And I kept calling him, every hour. He would not answer. And I was just terrified. And so I left work early and I zoomed down there and I found him holding the phone. He didn't know how to answer the phone. He was holding it. He knew it was something, I guess. And then he'd have these flashes of brilliance where he'd be himself again, and then it was gone. And it got progressively worse to the point where he would forget where the bathroom was, so he would soil himself because he couldn't get to the bathroom fast enough because he didn't know where it was, and his room was right next to the bathroom. It was tough. The mental cognitive part, the loss of that was the toughest part for me. He was a brilliant, thoughtful, intelligent man who loved to talk, loved dialogue, loved to discuss any topic, especially religion and politics. He loved that. And he challenged me intellectually. And as the person I am, I owe a lot to him for that. And he lost all of that slowly. And it's like, you're used to, I say I'm used to seeing that physical part where, oh, you got a little bit skinnier, you're a little bit bonier, you can't lift things, you're weak. In a weird way, I was used to the physical stuff, but that cognitive stuff was harder. It was a lot harder. He didn't know my name. Sometimes he didn't know where he was. He was really confused. And this is a man who didn't have a temper whatsoever. And he would get really frustrated and angry at me when I would try to help him move or rotate in the bed or, just do things. And so it was just not fun. I don't wish anyone to go through that with a family member ever. And so I was eating a lot. I would just find food and just stuff it down, just to feel maybe or be comforted. And I was eating a lot. And yeah, sorry, I'm getting a little lost in my head. So now when I go out after losing 50 pounds, after kind of getting a handle on this, I've moved to Minnesota since then. It took me a while to kind of move forward from that point, and I moved to Minnesota. It was kind of a symbolic move. It didn't only mean that I was moving to this new place and it was going to be fun, but it was also symbolic that I was ready to move forward with my life, because so much of my life had been defined by having a dying parent or a sick parent, and not wanting to be gone. And so moving here, it was great. And then my mom was diagnosed with cancer in February, and it was just like, pow, here's all the feelings you felt when your dad was sick, only it's for your mom now, and only you're in a different state. And so I felt a lot of guilt because I was far away, and like, should I move home? And it's just, it hit me with a lot of the same feelings. But she's great. She's in remission. It's called multiple myeloma. It's not skin cancer. It's a blood cancer that can affect your bone marrow, and it's pretty aggressive. The average expectancy is 5 to 7 years, which is terrifying. And but she's been working. She's a teacher. She's been working and going to chemo, and she's a rock star. am very upbeat, and she's in remission, which is great. So, and feeling really good. So, I'm incredibly overprotective, and I get after her for things. So, as is my job. And so that brought in a lot of different emotions again. And it's tough because, sometimes it hits me. Sometimes all at once where I'll just be reminded of all these negative feelings, worry about my mom, worry about her, and all these other things. And then also these mournful memories of my dad. And, it's tough not to want to just go across the street and get something, that's really bad for you, or really sugary, just to have that buzz. And my motivation for eating now, having lost 50 pounds, I'm more aware of why I'm eating, and I try to be more mindful of why I'm eating. And I think half the battle with weight loss is just being mindful. Why am I eating this? How does that make me feel after I've eaten it? And if it's bad or shameful or guilty, that's not what you're supposed to be eating then, You just have to be really aware. That's the first step. And whatever you've got to do, whether that's writing it down, tracking it somehow, there's so many apps and technology out there for you to utilize. If only you would just use it, and just stick to it. Whatever works for you. Being mindful of, why am I eating this? Just take a second and think, am I eating this because I'm upset? It's kind of like smoking. Oh, I need a cigarette. Well, are you smoking because you're upset? It's kind of the same principle. Today we had free food at work, and I love free food. Who doesn't love free food, right? And it was this buffalo wrap from a local place, and it's chicken and lettuce, and then it said it was wrapped in lettuce. And I'm like, fabulous, this is great, I can eat this. With Medifast, you're supposed to watch your portions of carbohydrates, and they really plan a lot of that in there. And I'll go over Medifast in another video blog. But it came in a tortilla shell, and I ate it, and like afterwards, I didn't even think about it. I just ate it. And I'm like, oh, you dummy, you could have like unwrapped it and then ate it like a salad. And 2 years ago, I would have really beat myself up about that. I would have taken that imperfection moment where I wasn't thinking, or I just kind of overlooked something and I didn't do something right. And I would have used that as an excuse to beat myself up and be really mean to myself and think really nasty things, and just basically go in this spiral where I was just going to think about all these negative things about myself. And instead, I said, oh, well, next choice, I'll make it better. I'll make sure that I'm a little bit more aware. It's a little bit more freeing because I don't take myself so seriously now. Maybe, I have my moments, but it's just so much better when you can be a little bit more mindful of the emotion behind what you're eating. And then when you do make those missteps, it's not because you are bad. It's just a slip up. And the next decision is all yours to make all the better. So that's my story for today. And now you know the rest of the story. Yeah, cool. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.